So I have the LG 65-inch C9 OLED TV, which is an all-around incredible TV for picture quality, design, and a ton of smart features, and the speed to process those smart features. A link to that review video is in the video description. It only felt fitting that I get some powerful sound to go with the TV, and so enter the LG SL9Y 4.1.2 500-watt soundbar with subwoofer, both powered by Meridian technology and Dolby Atmos. Measuring in inches, the soundbar is 48.03 by 5.7 by 2.2 and weighs 13.9 pounds. The subwoofer is 8.7 by 12.3 by 15.4 and weighs 16.8 pounds. The soundbar has a polished look and color that can easily blend into any setup. It is designed to be placed on a stand like I have, or it can be wall mounted. The soundbar will adjust the speaker outputs based on its orientation. You see, when the soundbar is sitting flat horizontally on the stand, you have those front-facing channels. But when you mount it vertically, the front-facing channels point down. So when mounted vertically, the soundbar is smart enough to know that the speakers that used to push surround sound up on your ceiling and bounce off the ceiling now have a different job of pointing sound directly at you. But you lose some slight punch because the speakers that used to face directly at you are now facing downward. Thankfully in the box, LG has included a few brackets to help you wall mount the soundbar. The subwoofer has a basic black finish, which seems appropriate as it's meant to be placed somewhere to the side. There is one odd thing about the soundbar design, and that its touch controls are on the top, and they're rather difficult and faint to see unless you're directly above them. The touch controls has pretty much everything you need in case you don't have the remote handy, including Google AI Assistant activation. On the front of the soundbar is an LED display showing what source you're connected to, what sound mode you're using, and the current volume level. The soundbar and subwoofer each need their own power outlet connection. The power wire on each device is about 5 feet long. The soundbar and subwoofer connect to each other via Bluetooth. I'm a big fan of the remote design because it's a pretty simple layout and the buttons are pretty large. So with enough use, eventually you'll press the desired button without even having to look at it. On the remote, F is for function, as in the source of the audio. The Google Assistant button activates, Google Assistant, which is built into the soundbar. More on that later. There are a few sound effect modes, and there's also an Android and iOS app available to use as a remote as well. For inputs to the soundbar, this optical audio and an optical wire does come with the sound system and is measuring about 3 feet long. There's also Bluetooth connectivity, so you can play music from your phone, for example. And in my range testing, I could get my phone 40 feet away from the soundbar and it still sounded crystal clear. It also accepts USB storage at the back of the soundbar, which supports FLAC, WAV, and MP3 files, just to name a few. It also has built-in Chromecast audio as well as HDMI. It would have been nice at this price point if there would have been 2 input HDMI ports though. Now the HDMI port is HDMI 2.0, which does support ARC, and also a 4K 60 frames per second playback if needed, as well as HDCP 2.2. It does support HDR10 as well as Dolby Vision, but it does not support HDR10+, which is kind of expected. The odd thing though is that it doesn't support eARC technology. In terms of electricity use, the soundbar and subwoofer combined use 96 watts of power, while in standby, they both use less than 1 watt. So it might be confusing to some people how the soundbar system is advertising being a 4.1.2 system. So the soundbar itself does have 2 speakers at the top, 2 facing forward and 2 at the side. And of course the subwoofer is the 0.1. And for those that want to, there are 2 optionally sold separate speakers that pair with this system. That system is the SPK8S. The entire system is advertised as having 500 watts of power. The performance is stellar. Even at 50% volume, it can get incredibly loud. And when pushing the soundbar volume to the higher side of things, you don't lose any quality of sound. It still sounds crystal clear. LG partnered with audio pioneers Meridian to utilize their understanding of audio to create a strong product. But what does that mean for real-world performance? So sound samples make absolutely no sense on YouTube because the sound is going to go from my soundbar to my camera microphone to editing back into YouTube and into your computer or whatever source, which will have different speakers. But to prevent people from complaining, here's a sound sample at 50% volume from 15 feet away. As I mentioned earlier, there are various sound modes available. Movie, for, movies. The only thing to keep in mind is that there's no center channel, but audio from actors and actresses' voices are thankfully easy to hear. Now the soundbar is advertised as supporting Dolby Atmos and DTS-X. Basically, the soundbar tries to have sound travel throughout the room as if you were actually in the movie that you're watching. The effort from the soundbar is incredible. The front-facing speakers send sound directly to you, the side channels try to bounce sound off your walls, and the top-facing channels bounce sound off your ceiling. The sound being bounced off the ceiling tries to replicate things such as a helicopter flying above you. Another mode is music, which sounds good but could use a bit more punch on the bass. Some rap songs I noticed was a little too light on the bass, but I'm not concerned at all because there's another function called bass blast mode, which, well, blasts the bass. Standard mode is pretty much your default all-arounder, and audio volume leveler reduces huge jumps in sound that might come out of nowhere. For example, if you're watching Hulu, it sounds normal when you're watching a TV show, but when the ads kick in, it gets way too loud. The soundbar will try to reduce the volume on those loud ads. To use Google AI, you need to set it up through the Google Home app, available for Android and iOS. Once done, you press the Google Assistant remote button. It'll take regular commands. For example, what is the weather today?
In Brampton today, it'll be partly cloudy with a forecasted high of 17 and a low of 6. Right now, it's 12 degrees and partly cloudy.
What's the latest news?
Here's the latest news. From Global News at 8:50 p.m. yesterday.
Today is Thursday, June 11th.
One thing to keep in mind is that in order to set up Google Assistant, you need to connect the soundbar with your Wi-Fi, which is a good thing because then you activate Google Chromecast audio support. So when you do connect it to Wi-Fi, it starts receiving over-the-air firmware updates from LG to improve the performance and whatnot. When that happened to me the first time, I got some weird letters and characters on the LED display at the front of the soundbar. And the soundbar did nothing for 10 minutes. It was frozen. I couldn't do any button commands. I couldn't touch anything on the touch panel. It wouldn't even shut off. I tried Google searching. I tried checking the manual. There was no reference of the code on the LED display anywhere. I thought I had bricked the soundbar. Only after 10 minutes of waiting did I realize that it was just updating the firmware. It just took a very long time. But that code that was being displayed was not displayed anywhere on LG's websites or the manual. I thought I had broken it. Thankfully, it continued working just fine. So if you're looking for a soundbar that'll make up for the poor quality of your TV speakers, this can do it and so much more. It'll make whatever you're watching much more fun. The other inclusion of Google Assistant makes it great because it then becomes a smart speaker as well as Google Chromecast audio support. You can cast audio to it and it'll start playing it just like that. So an all-around great soundbar system, definitely worth checking out. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, check out my social links in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.